everyone for making it out here on a Tuesday evening. We're very excited to welcome you, and I'm especially excited because this topic is really close to my heart, and I'm sure you're curious about whatever our panelists have to say. I'll just do a brief run through of Green Home NYC as an organization, and then we'll dive into the panel discussion. We'll keep questions to the end. And then we'll all hang out a little bit for a short networking session. Now, Green Home NYC has been around since 2002. It's a community-oriented, volunteer-run organization, and the mission is to promote an energy-efficient and sustainable built environment in New York City. We have three main programs. The Green Careers program, which is the team that's hosting the event today, basically focuses on sustainable professional development, enabling people to transition to green-focused careers. We also have a Green Building Tours flagship program where we organize tours to other sustainable locations. So, for example, we just organized a tour to a fabric scrap processing facility in Brooklyn a couple of months back. And our flagship team is the monthly forum, and we have one coming up next week right here, and we will share more details about that towards the end of the session. If you want to stay involved, there's many ways to do that. This is a QR code that you can scan to sign up as a volunteer. We're always looking for more volunteers. And stay logged in on our social media, which I'm sure you know where that is. But come find us if you have any questions. Good, so let's jump in now. All right, thanks to all of our panelists for making it out here. We're very excited to welcome you. Just to kind of get us started, I would love it if all of you could introduce yourselves really briefly, and then we can dive into some more thematic questions that are more focused on the topic. Giulia, why don't you get us started?
Sure. My name is Giulia Luci. Hello, everyone. I am Italian. Maybe I should say that. Not so maybe you got it from my accent very soon. I'm currently working as a senior technical climate analyst at New York City Housing Preservation and Development, HPD. Previously, I worked for many years as a sustainability consultant at Stephen Winter Associates. And I'm going to share more details later.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Vishwanathan. I moved here in 2010. I came from India. I started as a consultant working for the DC government and then a school district in Alexandria, Virginia. 5 years ago, I took up a role in Columbia University managing their medical center campus, which is roughly around 3.7 million square feet of space. My role is energy and sustainability lead for the university, so I manage the campus. More to come.
Zeeshan.
Thank you, Mansi. Hello, everyone. My name is Zeeshan Mohammed. I'm a technical implementation project manager at a startup company, Verdigris. Originally from India, but I've been here for about 10 years now. Slowly started getting my foot into sustainability space, and I'm sure we'll talk more about sustainability and my careers in the next few questions. Thank you.
Zeeshan, actually, on that note, can you get us started and talk a little bit about your journey from India and like how did you kind of get to the role that you're currently doing?
Definitely. So the role that I'm working on right now, I work as a project manager, technical implementations, at a company called Verdigris. It is a startup company specializing in AI-based smart power meters and sensors for building electrical panels. It's a little bit too technical, but I'll try to keep it simple. We collect building energy data from commercial buildings data centers, and the data is available 24/7. We provide the data via dashboard, API, or integrations via building automation systems. So, as I said originally from India. I started my journey in India with a bachelor's degree in electrical and electronics engineering. And while I was studying electrical engineering, I participated in a lot of technical activities, technical events where I made all-terrain robots using microcontrollers, Arduino, all those controllers. So that's what got me interested into controls and automation. I thought, okay, the technology is pretty awesome, that you can control anything from computer by writing a code. So that really made me want to do something in the automation space, which is why I moved to California for my master's degree in industrial automation. So once I completed my master's degree, I moved to New York City area and started working for this company called A&E as a building controls engineer. Now, this was one of my first careers in the sustainability space. Here, I learned everything about fundamentals of HVAC systems, building automation systems, how things work, the local standards, local codes, and everything. Did that for about 5 years, and transitioned into climate tech sustainability space with the next company, Perspective Data. It was a software company, but they have a flagship product called Nanton AI, which is a building cloud-based operating system for built environments, buildings, commercial buildings. So it was quite interesting because I had to do a lot of use my technical expertise and come up with optimization strategies on how we can save energy conservation. So that was quite interesting, and then I joined my current company, Verdigris. And yeah, it's been a great journey, and we'll talk more about these roles. But that's how I started.
Yeah, sure. So I took a pit stop before I came to US. So similar to Zeeshan, my background is electrical engineering. I grew up next to the largest coal power plant in India back in the days. It's a 500 megawatt coal power plant in Mumbai, where I grew up. Initially, while growing up, I did not know the smoke from the stack it's harmful for human beings. I did not have any idea. As a kid, I just took it for granted that I've seen the smoke for years and years, and I just ignored it. My first job was in the Middle East in Dubai, and every day driving to work, I would see these big Dutch ships pouring sand into the sea to make an artificial island. And that was the same thing going on for 2 years that I was driving to work, and this is what I would see. That's the time I started digging into what sustainability is. Is this the right thing to do? What can I do as an individual to protect the environment? What can I do to change some of the practices that are currently happening? Maybe I can optimize it, maybe I can change it, and those were the motivations. That's the time I started learning more about sustainability, energy management, carbon emissions, and I started digging into courses where I can do, I looked into Australia, I looked into India and US as well for universities that were offering these courses. Back in 2010, there weren't many energy and sustainability focused courses that were offered even in US. There were very few universities. George Washington University in DC was one of them. When I went to a bank to apply for a loan to come to US, even those guys didn't know what sustainability was. My family did not know what sustainability was. So it was like a very gray area, very niche area, and it's taking a lot of risk. But this is what I wanted to do. This was my passion. What can I do? What are my impacts in this world, and how I can change that? And that's how my journey started. I landed in Washington, DC. I completed my first master's, got into the energy auditing space, really understanding what drives building energy consumption and how we can reduce it or eliminate it. And that's how my future career was set up. Started as a consultant, doing hardcore energy calculations, but once I learned the hard part of the job, I moved on to a space where I can manage buildings, where I can take those decisions for the building owner, so being a building representative. I was the first energy manager in Alexandria City Public Schools. I'm not sure if you're football fans, but if you watch this movie, I'm blanking the movie. But anyways, there's a Disney movie on our school, so it's all our school posters are our Disney posters. Remember the Titans. If you watch Remember the Titans, that's our school district. But apart from that, my boss hired me into Columbia in New York City based on a conference where we visited and had an interaction, and he asked me to come and work for him in New York City, and that's how I took the plunge. But great experience so far. That's my journey in short.
Yeah, so I came here in 2014, so recently was my 10-year anniversary in New York City. I came here for a master. I did a master at NYU in civil engineering with a focus in construction management in Italy. I just graduated from a bachelor and master degree in architectural engineering, basically. So building, right? Building science, that was my thing. I've never studied sustainability, as we say, right? Even in 2014, those years, I mean, it wasn't a thing. Like, I was able to ask to do one optional class in sustainability, and it was already a big fight. But yeah, you didn't see like so many sustainability focused, etc., etc. And this is going to come back in my answers a lot as a topic, but like I always say that more because my focus is in buildings, right? Like I even work as an architect briefly, but I'm a building scientist first. So for me, sustainability in that area is really very good architecture, right? Or like very good building science, very good building design, and management and everything at construction, right? Like a building that works efficiently, that consumes less energy, that blah blah, keep us comfortable, etc. To me, it's just a good building. We don't have to call it sustainable. So for me, that was the trend, and that was like what brought me there, right? Like the best of what I was already doing. So that's where I started to basically be interested. Like there was always a line in my studies of being interested in doing those kind of things. I just saw them as the natural thing to do. Right after, I mean, the master was the bridge for me to basically get here, and I've always lived in New York City, not anywhere else in the US. And then my first job actually was with a solar panel company. Then it went bankrupt, but after I left, it wasn't my fault.
What year was this?
This was Level Solar. It was in the bubble, basically, of, like the PPE in Long Island, everybody throwing panels on the roofs when the incentives were high. But it was a very interesting environment, or like just being thrown into that hype of doing the things green and etc. And then I worked briefly as an architect doing lead work, and then I landed at Stephen Winter Associates, which was my main role for several years, where I work as a sustainability consultant, really understanding what this means, certifications for buildings, building science, many different roles and interests, and I learned a lot. And that's where I also started to get to know all the industry, right? Like this connected me to many people, and I think that was very important also in terms of networking, let's put it this way. I somehow, in this role, because I was hired in the residential team, I work a lot in residential. By residential, I should clarify, because people, I also mean like high-rise multifamily building.
It's focus dependent.
Yeah, exactly. Not residential in terms of building code or whatever. And so that and mostly New York City, or like close to New York City, but that meant in New York City a lot of affordable housing, right? There is a lot of affordable housing that's been built. There are strict sustainability rules, let's put it this way. mostly from HPE. And so that's where the connection started. I didn't look for it. Somehow I became like very into affordable sustainability in affordable housing. And that's how then I was basically poached out to come join the sustainability team at HPE, with which I already developed a lot of relationship because of my job. It's super niche, but it's actually very important because there is a lot of affordable housing being built in New York, or being preserved, like by built, I mean, in construction and renovation, and accounts for a lot of the construction, the buildings, and buildings is so much important for like greenhouse gas emissions in New York. So like you can think in that sense, the impact is a lot. So that's how that.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think and you've answered, or if you've answered my second question as well, which is like what inspired you to kind of go into sustainability, but it sounds like throughout the course of your professional journey, you've kind of had experiences that were pushing you in that direction. You even started out working with a solar company right out of grad school, so that's very interesting. Would you guys add anything in terms of where was that pivot to sustainability? And I know it kind of is embodied in the kind of work that you do, but not to put you on the spot. If there's anything that you would like to add with respect to that pivot to sustainability, I'd find that really insightful.
I think like it's a very individual response. Like three of us sitting here, all of us have a different sort of journey to get to do what we are trying to do in sustainability space. Like I believe even with the audience, right? Like all of us, we know there are jobs out there that will pay like $1 million as well. But like deep down, we do care for something, which is why we are in this space, the sustainability space. There are some jobs that would pay you more, but there are some jobs that would give you absolute job satisfaction. And I feel like sustainability or working within this energy and sustainability space, that's what I do get. Like every day I am a little bit excited to go to work and think about what am I going to do today that is going to save, either reduce energy consumption or either plan activities that will lead to a positive environment. So those motivation factors are very, it depends upon what would motivate you, but that's what motivates me, my impact, what am I going to do? It's and within the sustainability space, we're not trying to do a short-term task. We are always thinking really long-term, like 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. That's why we talk about what are our goals for 2050 and 2040. Let's be net zero by 2050. Those are the things we plan for. It's always long-term vision, not a short-term vision.
Yeah, I totally agree with this. There is a bit of like, if you come from this technical side of things, right, engineers, like you can land on jobs that are interesting in terms of what you studied, right? Like, or what you know, but what's the end goal? Like, what are you building, right? You're building something that is going to do good, or you're just building something that is fun to build, but you know, so I think that's the differentiator for me that at some point I was getting to, which led me again to also this very specific, like I think also for me the affordable housing aspect is important because it's like on top of that it feels like a call, like it's purpose driven basically. Well, where I can have the more impact, right? So with my abilities though, not with like random job. So yeah, I think that was ultimately led me to that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Jeet and Giulia on sustainability. It's not something you're born with. You're not born with, okay, I want to do something in the sustainability space. It's about finding your passion. In fact, I actually got interested in sustainability with my first job. I was working as a building controls engineer at AME. As an engineer, I was responsible for implementing and programming optimization strategies for HVAC systems. Now you might ask, okay, well, why do we care about HVAC systems? Well, HVAC systems, they contribute, well, they use 50 to 60% of a typical commercial building's energy consumption. So Now, if we can find a way to automate these or optimize these systems, then we personally have seen savings as high as 20 to 30% within HVAC systems. And by reducing your energy consumption, you're essentially lowering your carbon emissions and also improving the sustainability, long-term sustainability. So this really got me interested into this space. And like I said earlier, it's not something we were born with. As engineers, we're so technical about, okay, how do I get this task from A to B, right? But at some point, you have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. What are you actually doing? Sustainability, I think, is a big space, whether you're a technical person or a non-technical person. And understanding how you can make even a little bit of improvement to the world. How can you make the world a better place? Even if you're contributing as little as 2%, that's fine. You're working towards something. And while I was working as an engineer, I found out there's a lot of savings by optimizing HVAC systems. And I've seen savings in commercial buildings in New York City. I've seen savings as high as 30% if the system is properly optimized. Yeah. Now, this is really important and crucial because 40% of the CO2 emissions is because of buildings. The entire CO2 emissions in the world is because of buildings. So it's a huge task. And similarly, when I joined my next company in the climate tech space at Prescriptive Data, we used advanced optimizing strategies using artificial intelligence, how to optimize HVAC systems using AI. That was a really great experience, and I have first-hand experience on how buildings were able to reduce their carbon footprint just by using technology.
Excellent. So you're basically combining both your personal passion for creating an impact as well as it's making sense for the business. Yes. Amazing. I'm going to pivot. I want to hear a personal story. I want to hear an anecdote that encapsulates your experience working as an immigrant in sustainability in the city. And I know I shared these questions with you before, so I hope you've had the time to think about the incident that you're going to tell us about. So whoever feels the need to get started, you can start. Yeah.
I can go first. I mean, I walked into a conference in New York City on Local Law 97. The person to speak at that conference was the Chief Sustainability Officer for New York City, Rohit Agarwal. He's an immigrant. Yep. He's at Columbia as well. Yeah. He's an immigrant as well. I met a few of the mayor's main staff who are running some of the key programs in sustainability. Most of them were immigrants as well. The person who is running the composting program on behalf of the mayor's office, really young, smart individual, she's an immigrant as well. So I felt like I was surrounded by folks who are born and raised in the US, immigrants like me, so I did not feel alienated. All I felt was like, this is a happy medium. Like everyone is sharing their own experiences and they bring in different perspective from different regions of the world that they are coming in from to make this city as a better place. So I felt like that was really funny to see I was not the only person who was alien, but everyone around me kind of looked the same.
Good. I don't know if I can think of one.
Okay, any.
But maybe there are a couple of things that are specific. So first of all, so during my, as I say, I was, especially during my time at Spring Winter Associates, I was also I was on site a lot, doing inspections, testing, etc. So really, again, dealing with GCs, construction workers, etc. And there has always been, or even before, when I'm saying the GC or construction workers, because that's where maybe you find less. It's interesting because imagine me, right, as a youngish woman with a weird accent coming on site to tell the straights, even if they were immigrants, but different point of view, to tell them this is wrong, this is bad, whatever, right?
Yeah.
To do an inspection that is a stressful time for them anyways, right? We were also doing inspection for energy code, so stuff, we have to sign off, we're the third party. So I think that really encapsulates the fact that, I don't know, at some point it comes down to all your background that is inevitably show up in the person that you are, right? You're never not going to be like a person with an accent, or like they're always going to ask you, hey, where are you from? You know, like that's like it's always going to be a thing,
Yeah.
no matter like
Yeah.
no matter how much you change or how long you're staying here, but still like, and then they're being like their universe that is like so distant in a way, but then we have to come down and talk about very specific details on how some very specific things work. So I think it's always been fascinating to me because I'm like, I mean, I know whatever, and then everybody was like, oh, we're betting on, are you French or Greek or Italian, like all the ways coming to that. But really, we need to talk about this thing now. So I think that has always been fascinating. The other thing that, so there is this thing that, you know, there is Europe seen as more sustainable, more efficient, right? Like, there is a bit of this idea. I mean, and Europe is a big continent, so that's already a thing. But in some ways, it's true, even in Italy, that there are certain things that are, but it's very hard to generalize. But people assume, right, like, you know, a lot from the country you are from. But really, for me, has been the opposite, because whatever is in construction, like technical construction, right, that I learned in Italy, it's so different that I had to relearn a lot, right? Like in Italy, they barely build with wood, for example. Here, like we barely have a building code for wood frame building. Here, it's the base, right? So I had to relearn a lot of that and all the terms and everything, and really rethink of all the stuff that I studied, and then relearn everything again. So I think that's something that really, and even now I still like stuff that for someone that grew up here is very basic, right? Very normal for me. It's been a new thing. So I think that's another kind of line in my experience in all those years that has always been like, yes, I still knew yeah. So that's interesting. I think if you speak with many people, maybe not only sustainability, anyone came here can share some of this.
I'm sure we hear a lot of personal stories during the networking.
But I would say, like, maybe mostly on the first thing that I said, right, about showing us different, begin, like, no matter what. I always use it as a power, like, not as a power, as something that benefited me, right? Everyone remember about you. You were the weird one with the wrong. Exactly. So like maybe they listen to you more because of that.
That's an interesting thing. Zeeshan, do you have a story for us?
Yeah, I have a little bit of similar experience like Giulia and I'm sure a lot of people, especially immigrants who start their career in the initial stages. So I had one such experience with my first company, AME. Now, when I first started, I was engineer, and I was working on a retrofit project where I had to optimize different HVAC systems. So, because it had been a few months, I think 3 or 4 months when I joined this company, and there was a lot of skepticism from my fellow peers, managers, that because I was coming from a different background, different culture. Also, we have different standards in different countries. Like, for example, in India, we use Celsius versus Fahrenheit for temperature, right? Even for weight, we use kilogram versus pounds here. So they have different standards, and as my background is in electrical engineering, even the electricity standard is different. We use 220 volt 50 hertz, whereas USA uses 120 volt 60 hertz. So there were a lot of things that I didn't understand, and in a way, their skepticism, I think it was they were right, but I took that challenge as an opportunity. So I started learning more about local standards, buildings, New York City local regulations, and also worked with a few of the experts in the company. and which really helped me learn more about the standards, everything about how the process should be in order to implement this project. And rightfully so, I mean, the project was a success. We still ended up saving 20%. And I've been with that company for 5 years. So you can say that company was a stepping stone for me. So learned everything about fundamentals of HVAC, PMS systems, local laws, local regulations, the standards, and whatnot. So before leaving the company, I was training a few of their technicians and engineers. I conducted a lot of training sessions, also with the customers. So I guess their view has changed after working with them for 5 years. But that's something an immigrant or someone who's not familiar with, because they will always face something. Doesn't have to be a technical role, no matter what. Something is always done differently back in the home country. So you kind of have to make that adjustment and learn more about local regulations, local standards, and how things are done here.
That's a great segue into my next question, which is how did you, are there strategies that you employ to develop these professional relationships? Like you said, you had to kind of turn around that perception a little bit. How did you approach your sort of developing those personal relationships? And would you like to kind of share a little bit about that?
Yeah, as an immigrant, we all come from different backgrounds, different cultures. We speak, different languages. So, in my opinion, keeping an open mind and willing to adapt and also willing to learn from people, that plays a very important role. You have to be ready for asking. You have to be ready asking questions. You have to be the first person to make the move. Because you're in a different company, you can be expecting questions from people who actually live here. So be open, willing to ask a lot of questions, and that's what I did. I mean, during my first 3 years, I was asking so many questions, and sometimes people are okay, why do you ask so many questions? But that's fine. No question is a wrong question. No question is a dumb question. So everyone's learning. So keeping an open mind, and one strategy that I think is really important is called active listening. Now, active listening is truly listening to someone you're speaking with and trying to understand what they're saying, understanding what they're saying. You're not just listening to have a conversation, but to understand their culture, their differences. And you actually have a benefit being an immigrant. I've noticed that people are interested to learn about your culture, your background, but they don't, they might not ask you. They might not be straightforward. And as an immigrant, I mean, you can be very open about it. You can share about your cultural background, your experiences back from your home country, and they would love to hear. People from here, they would love to hear about your experiences, and that's one way to build a professional relationship. You're sharing about your culture, your experiences. At the same time, you're also making an effort, an honest effort to learn about their culture.
Yeah, and choose initiative. Right?
Yeah, and I think being open, keeping the communication channel open, that is really important. And one of the things that as an immigrant, like I said, we all come from different backgrounds, and a lot of people, they might not even have English as their first language. From India. In India, we have over 100 languages. So, having the communication channel open, and whatever message you're trying to deliver, keep it clear and concise. It's going to take a little bit of effort, but try to keep it slow, help them understand, and it's about delivering your message in the right way. I think that has really helped me, develop my professional career.
Yeah.
Sure. I did not follow the normal path at all in networking. I quickly realized when I was a student that if there is a networking specific event, everyone around me is there to network at that event as well. So I used to go to conferences and events, but not with the intention of networking and getting to know anyone. I did something different. I just did what I like: running, biking, playing frisbee on the mall, doing softball leagues. But what I ended up realizing was there are a lot of young professionals or professionals who would come and play similar sport or game just like me, and they're all working in multiple different companies. And since they were working in different companies, now that I'm on their team, they will look out for their teammate, which is me. So kind of made me easy, like there was an inorganic networking happening. I never used to tell everyone like, hey, I'm looking for a job. Like whenever, after the event, we sit down, have a beer or something, and that conversation, if it comes up, I would say, hey, yes, I'm looking for a job, I'm in this field. Those 10 people will spread their network and do the work for me. They will come and say, I know someone who is in the sustainability field, I know someone who is in the energy field. And that really helped me. So I kept continuing doing what I liked. I learned a lot from them. Did not know about baseball or American football or basketball or March Madness, things like that. But I learned it from them, which was easy for me in my interviews because 50% of the time is like interviewing questions, 50% is like, what's your favorite team in New York? And you can never say one or the other unless you really know who the hiring manager likes, right? So it's a good strategy. It really works. Of all the people that have come to me, I've advised them, keep doing what you like, go to meetup.com, go to a hiking group, join these random groups where you can meet people, but that's a better way to inorganically network, and I found value in it, so hopefully you all do it too.
That's a really, really good piece of advice.
Yeah, maybe for me, it was before even getting to network, I needed to understand what I wanted from this networking. So for me, I remember especially, again, like maybe before joining Stephen Winter Associates, which was by itself the place from where I knew a lot of people and companies. But before getting to there, besides joining groups like Green Home NYC or Urban Green or like all those, right, that in the sustainability space, it was reading a lot about which companies are there. I don't even know at that point. So I remember one piece of advice that I give to, like, besides first of all deciding what you want to do, or like generally speaking the topic, right, like the industry, the niche that you want to tackle, but it's also just read job descriptions. Like I was reading so many job descriptions, so that gives you an idea of the company and like what are those people doing, what do you need to do to, like, even if you're not applying or whatever, I was like, okay, those are the people working out there, right? Because until you are in school or you're not really into the job environment, I don't know what jobs are out there, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like we are in the old times of the doctor, the tailor. Everybody does a job that is impossible to describe, and like it takes me half an hour to understand what you do anyways. So I was like just starting to understand what are people doing out there, what is their job, and what is the job that I would like to do. So this is how I found out about the main companies, and then from there, I mean, now I think back in the days, maybe LinkedIn was not so heavy as now. I don't know. Yeah, I think now it's easier. Like that's what it's all about, right? Like understanding what other people do for a job. But yeah, basically based on that, then I was also really trying to go to events and stuff where those people from the companies I was interested in were speaking.
Yeah.
Because as we say, like sometimes if you go to a networking event only, the main people you want to speak with are not there probably, but if they're speaking, maybe they are there.
Yeah.
So that's how how I gave my first business card to the person at Stephen Winter Associates, like because.
So if any of you are here for NYC HPP?
Exactly.
You know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, this is very helpful. And you're saying basically look at job descriptions even when you're not actively job hunting.
Exactly.
It gives you a better idea of how to shape your journey to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
very cool. Very cool. I think one thing that we wanted to bring out in this panel is, and I think you alluded to this a little bit, Jeet, when you spoke about how when you enter a room that's talking about meeting NYC's climate goals, it's like every other person is seeing there as an immigrant.
Right.
What I'm curious about is, how do you think your experiences in your home country inform your day-to-day work now here in sustainability? If they do, and please be honest, maybe they don't because things are very different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah.
I think absolutely. Like growing up in different regions, like if you really want to think about big long-term impact, you cannot think about a specific region or the city that you're working on. You have to think broader from the perspective of the earth, because global warming might not just happen in New York City, it might happen in Kenya, it might happen in Australia, it's happening all over the world. Growing up, we had intermittent power sources, like electricity was not 24 hours. It was a privilege to have electricity, and it was a greater privilege to have 3 phases of electricity. 3 phases
I know
important.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And it still isn't.
It's still there, yeah,
Yeah.
3 phases, why it's 3 phases? Because when there's 3 phases of electricity, you can run motors. When you can run motors, you can pump water from the earth to
Meet your water needs.
to meet your water needs and also to supply water to the agriculture. And that used to come at 1 a.m. in the morning. So, 3 phases of electricity was timed because early in the morning, all the power goes to industries. And late at night, starting like 12, 1, 2 a.m., it goes to farmers. So you have to wake up at 1, 2 a.m., go to your field, start your motor so you can start pumping the water out. At the same time, 1 a.m., there are a lot of critters and snakes out in the field as well. There's no power. So it's like growing up in that environment where, electricity was not taken for granted. Water sources were limited. You have to stand in a line with a big bucket, wait for your turn, fill the water, run back home, fill the small tank that you have built with water, go back again in the line. So it was not like, everything was not taken for granted. Like moving into a developed world, I can turn on air conditioning whenever I want. I can turn on clean running water whenever I want. So I don't take these things lightly. It's a privilege for me to have access to this, but I want to get to a point where all the people in this world have similar privileges, so we should not take things for granted, which is why impact, motivation, sustainability, and just because we have access to it doesn't mean we should waste it, kind of things motivate it. Stop it there. Yeah.
Giulia?
I don't know if anything, the societies are different, but there are many similarities, I feel. And again, also because I left, I never worked in Italy,
Oh,
right?
okay, that's interesting.
Because yes, I came here right after I finished my bachelor master.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as internship in Italy.
Oh.
It's basically job all over. So but the idea was maybe that's something that for me was exciting, that I came here, right, like the master was almost an excuse, but the idea was like, let's go find a cool job in the US, right? Yeah, exactly. I'm part of that phenomenon that is called the drain of the brains in Europe or in Italy, where a lot of people that are graduated, even with master degree, leave the country right after because to find good opportunities.
Yeah.
So for me again, even if in a way, yes, we can say there were interesting projects going on, etc., I didn't saw back then all this excitement and growing infrastructure for sustainability in buildings to actually happen at such a mass level.
And you're seeing that now.
Yes, exactly. So I think for me, yes, it was more like, oh, actually they're doing things, right? In Italy, they're just talking about doing it. So that's the push I think that I got.
Zeeshan, anything?
Yeah, I have a lot of similar experiences like Jeet. Being from India, we take a lot of things for granted that are not readily available 24/7 back in different countries. One such example that Jeet mentioned, a week. So my mom literally used to stand in the line waiting to collect drinking water. So that made me realize the importance of water conservation. And I mean, even now we still think about wasting water and not leave the tap running, don't leave the faucet running. Those little things, I mean, they matter because not everyone is privileged. The other thing, one of the first things when I noticed when I moved from India to the USA is the recycling program. Recycling program is not as common back in India as it is here.
Yeah.
In India, you're like, okay, we just throw everything in the trash bin, and like when we started noticing what the recycling program does here, I gained consciousness, and me and my wife, we're doing our bit every single day, even if it's a piece of paper or plastic or recycled batteries or metal, we always try to recycle them. And in fact, when we go back home, we still try to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So those are the things we take for granted. The other things that I think really helped me because as an immigrant, now India as a country is quite diverse. It has 28 states, and 28 states has different cultures. Every state has different culture. Every state speaks different languages. And as I mentioned earlier, in India, I think there's more than 100 languages, major languages spoken in India. So despite all these differences, I think all the people from India, we still get along with everyone, especially due to mass transfer. Airplanes are so cheap now. People are migrating from one place to the other. We see people from North India come and work in my city, which is South India. There's a lot of intercity transportation migration happening within India, and I think in general Indians are very adaptable because we just learn to live with different types of people, different cultures, and we share different cultures, and that's something I've learned being an immigrant. So as an immigrant, I mean, even now with my current role as a project manager, being from India has taught me how to be adaptable with different challenges, different things that I face every day. When I'm working on different projects, I mean, I work on projects all over USA. So even in USA, people are different. People from New York are different from people from California or Texas. So you're dealing with different people and navigating different project guidelines. So I think that has really helped me in just getting adaptable with anyone.
Yeah, that's really interesting and insightful. I think let's switch gears a bit, and I want to ask you what your wish list for like employers is like. As an immigrant, I know free visas for everyone, yeah, or something. I mean, obviously it's a hard time right now, and I'm sure it's always been to some extent this way. But like, what would you wish that employers would do more when they're like hiring immigrants? And hopefully, all of us in the room can be in a position that we can do those things at some point in time. And I'm sure like some of you are hiring managers as well, and try to incorporate that or lobby with like employer HR policies and everything. But what is that one thing that you wish you had while you were navigating this journey in this country? And I'll limit you guys to one thing because I'm sure we want to leave some time for audience questions as well.
Then I can start. I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of employers. I mean, when I started the employer, we had a program, a training program where the new employees, not just immigrants, but all the new employees were trained on how to use the proper procedures, the safety procedures. I mean, I worked in construction, so there was a lot of, you have to get OSHA certified.
Yeah.
You're working on the construction side. So employers, creating an open space where an employee can learn, ask the right questions, and also get help. I think that's really helpful. Even my company, perspective that I think we are very open, we're transparent, and we have those open channels where anyone can communicate and express their feelings. Doesn't matter if it's a small decision or a big company-wide decision, the channel is always open and you can always comment about your opinion. Having those kind of channels, I think, really helps not only immigrants but everyone as an individual in their career.
company perspective, but what I can say is, as an individual, if we are trying to get the skills that the employer needs and meet the needs of the employer, irrespective of having a visa or no visa requirements, the employer will find ways to hire you. And I've seen that happen even in companies which traditionally have not had immigrants, but since the need of the company is so critical, they try to fill those roles with immigrants and then learn the process of sponsorship, your H-1B or OPT. So those things can happen organically, and as us immigrants, we have to tell the employer that, hey, there is something called as an OPT period where I don't need sponsorship, but once 36 months goes by or 27 months goes by, if you hire a lawyer, do X, Y, and Z, you can hire me and keep me on payroll. And those things are absolutely possible. So don't get dejected. Just get the skills that is needed in the market, make sure you have those skills, and you will find the right job.
I'm going to say a visa for everyone.
Yeah, no, I
know.
Yeah.
But that's a real thing that I wish. Yeah, that's like the. But beside that, since I have one, I think understanding the language barrier. I think many employers do. And I'm talking, again, we are in the technical field more or less, right? We're not here writing novels, so I mean, like, it's fine.
The skills that are needed for the job.
Yeah, so, and also maybe put in place whatever tools can be helpful. I mean, as low-hanging fruit as, I don't know, a free premium subscription to Grammarly, whatever, like something like that, or something more like, substantial for those people who are like, because I think that really helps to understand the language barrier that, I mean, an immigrant has to face. And it's not only like the grammar, but also like the way of saying, how to write an email, like all those things that you don't have like immediately, including less acronyms.
Yes,
That's the real issue.
yes. Yeah. So many acronyms.
Exactly.
Well, thanks to ChatGPT, you don't have to worry about emails now.
Exactly. Well, yes and no.
Jeet, I'm going to push you one more time and
Sure.
think of something that the employers can do. I know you gave us advice for what immigrants do, but I really want to ask you to reconsider and think about something that you wish your employers would have done.
If I was the employer or the hiring manager, I try to avoid the question of what's your legal status,
Okay.
as long as the job description that I put out matches with the resume that I'm looking for. So historically, I have avoided that question. I've let HR handle that. But even if there is a visa requirement, I try to advocate for that particular resume, saying that this is the only resume that meets the requirement. You figure it out how you can employ that person. If we are hiring for a certain role, it's our responsibility to find the right talent and not worry about the legal status. So as you grow and progress and become hiring managers as well, if you can advocate the same way, it's apple to apple comparison, not on legal status.
Thank you. I appreciate you hearing me.
Yeah.
I think let's pivot a bit, and also now, I know you've all been giving us a lot of advice on like what immigrants can do differently and like how to navigate professional relationships and everything. What's like one piece of advice that you would add to everything that you said so far? And any of you can start.
Yeah, I can start. One piece of advice, especially if you're an international student who are still, in the initial stage of their career, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be right. Try to find internships. Try to find organizations that you really care about, industries you really care about, and try to secure internships. Because, like Jeet said earlier, if you're an international student, the companies, they don't have to worry about your visa. You get something called CPT or OPT, where the company doesn't have to sponsor you. Take that opportunity and utilize that to the fullest. That way, as long as you're studying, you can have multiple internships over the course of 2 years or 4 years period, right? experience all the different industries, what they're offering, and one thing that is really important is think about how can you solve a problem that this company is facing. If you can find an answer to that question and present your answer, then a company will want you. I mean, even if you're not on the visa, company will do whatever they can to hire you. You have to be required. You have to be the person who can do the job. If you are that person, I think you don't have to worry about the visa. But yeah, as long as you're studying, one piece of advice is try different things. Do internships in different companies. You never know which company you end up liking. Try different sectors. Maybe go to sustainability space. Different pathways in sustainability. You can go technical route or non-technical route. There's what I'm doing right now in the energy sector, and something what she is also doing. That's the more technical part. But what if you don't like it? I mean, too bad. You can't do it after once you're on H1B. So feel free to try different things. Work around, try to define companies, industries that you really want to work on. And networking is really important.
So try out different things, and then be really valuable when you find the thing that you want to do, right?
Yeah. If the companies find that you have that thing which if you're the person who can solve any problem, well, you're golden. You don't have to worry about anything.
Yeah, no, awesome.
So all the things Zeeshan said, on top of that, try to be, when you're applying for jobs, let's say create like a spreadsheet of the link, the job link, the date you applied for, and try to create like a spreadsheet that says it's been 10 days, or put a timer on that and say, I applied for this job 10 days. If you don't hear back, actively reach out to the company and ask for a feedback. Where is my job application? Are you still considering me, so that you know what's happening? That sets two things up. In terms of the person who is hiring for that role, that person immediately recognizes that not many people in the market are actively following up on job description. This person seems to be interested, so they try to pick your resume up. But at the same time, you know that this is either a good cause or a lost cause, so that you can divert your energy and move on to the next job that you're doing. I still have my spreadsheets from jobs that I applied in 2010 to jobs that I've applied in 2023. My last day at Columbia is this Friday, but it took me like 180 job applications to land on to my next job, even having this 10, 14 years of experience, because I did not follow my own advice. I was randomly applying for jobs instead of like focusing my energy and doing it the right way. In the last 10, 15 applications that I did that, it really helped. It really helped me land a job that I'm moving on to. So just look at LinkedIn as well. LinkedIn is a great tool. If you are graduating from X university, always find your alumni group, because you'll find someone from your alumni group who's already working in X, Y, and Z companies. So just go to your university's page, click on the alumni tab, and put just energy as the keyword or sustainability as the keyword. You'll at least find 5 to 10 people who are in this space, and you can reach out to them and ask them for coffee interviews. If you like a certain company, always reach out to the individuals working in that company, not regarding a job. Just ask them, what do you do for work? I would want to know what a professional does on their day-to-day 9-to-5 job, so that I can learn something about sustainability. These random strategies, although they're super random, it usually works because not everyone is doing this.
I have a slightly different advice on the visa aspect. I mean, I obviously wish that it's like they described, that if they need you, they will hire you, they figure it out. And I think many maybe hopefully some companies do, but it's not all the companies, it's in my experience. So my advice is, because we're talking here, right, like I wouldn't say this if we were like in engineering careers in sustainability panel, but because this is specifically for immigrant, like that's a very important aspect of the search, right, of your job. So at the very least, you need to become an expert in your own situation and figure out your visa, your possibilities, what can you do, because especially like in smaller companies, and by smaller I mean like 100 to 300 employees or lower. HR doesn't know anything about it. Like maybe they never had like a non-US citizen employee. If they had, maybe it was the one case and it was probably different from you. So you have to become a bit of an expert, and that's kind of like the first thing, and then like that open. Also, many jobs are not available if you don't have a green card, right? Like they just don't. They're not going to hire you. Or you are a US citizen. So I think that those are important things to understand, to bring to the table, and then of course, like if you know that there is a way or whatever, like trying to be the one that they have to hire, no matter what, and they find a way if they can. I think that's maybe my main advice in this specific panel.
That's very helpful.
I'd like to add a few points to Giulia. And she's right. I mean, a lot of small companies, they don't even know about this technicalities of legal immigration, what is right, what is H1B, and whatnot. And in my personal experience, it's easier to get a job in smaller companies. The reason being, there's no hierarchy. You're dealing with the direct manager, or maybe a few 1% above him. It's easier to get a job in smaller companies and try to secure a job when you're in that initial CPT OPT period, and if you stay longer, learn from the same company, and you can actually explain the company what the process is, and hopefully they're willing to sponsor you. That has worked for me in all my previous roles. They're all smaller companies, and in fact, I was one of the first ones who they were sponsored. So that's a great piece of advice. I mean, smaller companies, easier to get into.
And also, the bigger companies seem to be laying off a lot of people at the moment.
That is right.
So apply to me. No, I don't know. That's not my off the record.
It's all great record.
It's being recorded. Sorry, we cut that part. So I think just on like advice perspective, are there any professional groups that you would like to point out that you're a part of, maybe that you found helpful? I know software groups are great as well, so that's one way of thinking about it. But any others? Green Home NYC maybe? Just kidding, but
Definitely Green Home NYC.
oh, amazing, perfect. That's what I like.
In the building industry, I mean, I think Green Home NYC, but also Building Energy Exchange, where Green Home NYC very own Katie Schwab works there. They do plenty of events, webinars, things going on that is like most of the time free or like really very low price, and kind of in competition with them. It's Urban Green Council, which used to be the lead chapter for New York City, but now it's not anymore. It's like completely separate. Similarly, they run multiple events. They just had the conference like last week, I think. So I think for the specific building sector, those are very important. Like I think.
So between Green Home NYC, BEX, Urban Green Council, ASHRAE, Certified AEE, Association of Energy Engineers, AIA, USGBC. Those are like 5-6 premier institutes, and you'll find multiple professionals a part of either one of them. The simplest thing to do if you want to get into that lead space is do your lead GA exam. You don't need experience, you just need to study like 2 days and you can pass the test. Lead GA is the most simplest test you'll ever take, but that will give you an entry. Something is on your resume, but that will also give you entry into the spaces. Talking to a lead professional saying, yes, I have my lead GA, I'm going to pursue blah, blah, blah in the future. But those are 5-6 great organizations for you to network in. If you're a student, they have student rates. It's always like discounted, sometimes free at these events. There's a lot of good food and alcohol into it. But yes, great organizations. That's more than enough. I don't think you you should try to go to every organization, try to find like good 2 or 3, and you'll find thousands of companies associated with it. Go to their webpage and you'll find all their sponsors. Those are the people that you should network with.
Zeeshan, you want to add to that, please? I know there's quite a few, but there's anyone?
Jeet almost mentioned every single sustainability related groups and professional organizations you can join, but personally me, I've been a member of IEEE, Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, for almost 12 years now. They have a wealth of resources for learning anything. They have webinars, podcasts, publications. You can stay current on all the latest developments in the industry. So if you're a technical person, being in mechanical, electrical, find something that you really want to work on, and join that professional organization. One of the other organizations in sustainability is ISSP, International Society of Sustainability Professionals. They do a great job in sponsoring events and also keeping you updated on the latest trends happening in sustainability space.
That's helpful. And what we'll do is we'll kind of summarize all of these organizations in our social media analysis. So you'll have all of these captured. So we'll put up the recording as well.
I will add that maybe there is, but I can't remember the exact name. There is like a newsletter that kind of is, I think maybe New York Climate. I don't remember the exact name.
But we will email you and
exactly.
let us know, and then we'll feature it.
It's helpful because it's kind of a summary of all the events going on a certain week in this topic, which for me, it's actually helpful because I receive a million newsletters and like, but this is helpful.
We follow with you.
Okay.
It works because that's how I found this.
Really? Oh, is that New York Climate Tech? Is that
maybe.
You're talking about the one with Sonam Milani and
I think
and Alan?
Yes.
Stoneberg?
Maybe.
Is that the one?
Yeah,
okay.
yes.
Perfect. Okay, amazing. We have a feature them as well. I can keep going and I have a lot of questions, but I want to turn it over to all of you guys and see if you have any questions that you want to ask. Please.
I have one technical question. What is the future of sustainability, and what are the few new things that we are going to see in 5-10 years more? So as students, we can learn those things right now, and we can do good in this field.
What do you see as being like the thing of the future?
And the new technologies that we are going to develop in this field. So
I can chime in. So if you're trying to focus on New York City, New York is going big on sustainability, and there's a lot of projects that New York City is actually implementing right now as we speak. There's Local Law 97, which is a big driver for all the commercial buildings. So commercial buildings, 25,000 square feet and above, they have to lower their carbon footprint, carbon emissions every single year. And the requirements for the carbon requirements is they're getting stricter every year. So 2024 requirement, I think they have a 2024 limit and a 2030 limit. And in order to meet those limits, companies are heavily investing in a lot of technological upgrades, equipment upgrade, and in fact, on top of Local Law 97, there's also building electrification, which is New York City is trying to get rid of fossil fuels, equipments that are using fossil fuels, any heating systems that are using fossil fuels, and hopefully everything will be transitioned into heat pumps. Now, heat pumps are really efficient, and they don't use fossil fuels, and heat pumps also work on renewable energy sources. It's not too late. Sustainability, we're just getting started. So there's a lot of opportunities in sustainability, in my opinion. And even with what I do with my current company, we provide circuit level granular energy data to the buildings, and they're using that data to lower their energy consumption. And the same data is also fed to multiple different companies. My customers, they have third-party dashboards, and we send data via API. So we need someone who understands API, right? We need computer engineers, we need software engineers, and in order to understand all the billions of data, you need we need data engineers, data scientists. So, right now within this space, I've talked about electrical engineers, computer engineers, there's data engineers. So there's a lot of opportunities. It's a wide space, sustainability. I mean,
So generic skills can also apply to this technologies of the future, is what I'm hearing.
you don't have to be non-technical. You don't have to be, from sustainability space. Everything kind of meets at the same point. We are all trying to make the world a better place, and almost every company is investing heavily with ESG, and every company have their own ESG goals for 2040, 2050. There's a lot of work.
Oh, I would just say, just do the basics. You can't predict the future of what is going to happen tomorrow, day after tomorrow. Just make sure you know your basics really well. If you're an engineering student, know your engineering principles. If you're into communication, know about communication basics. And the rest, everything will fall into place. Like Zeeshan said, it's within this city, we are starting. Will be the local law 97 is the strictest law in the entire country. So we're just starting, and there are more jobs out there than people available to do these jobs. So as long as you do the basics, don't worry about what should I be learning now? Because by the time you graduate and you come to the workplace, it would have already been changed.
I mean, for me, it's back to what I said at the beginning. I mean, again, I focus on architecture engineering. I always say, don't try to learn a new technology. All the things that we need to implement are already there.
Yes.
Just learn how to do things properly. And we are already a big step. Because the problem is not that we have to create this magical tool that is going to solve everything. No, we just need to know how to, first of all, convince people to use the things that are already available, and then implement that in the correct way. I did countless construction site inspections where we were not talking about a piece of equipment invented yesterday. We were talking about old school liquid applied air barrier that has been around for 40 years. I don't know, and still they don't know how to apply.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, or insulation, very basic things. So I think that state of the art, right? There is going back to the state of the art, and I think that's the most important thing.
Something real quick. Can I add
Yeah,
something
yeah.
real quick? If you look behind you, it's Empire State Building, right? Empire State Building 15 years ago did something that none of the people in New York City did. So Local Law 97, what has come up, is essentially trying to make every building do what New York City building, the Empire State Building has done. They started something called as deep energy audit, which no one in the city has done. But they essentially want every building in New York City to follow their principles. So at Columbia, instead of rewriting or reinventing the wheel, I just looked at their scope of work and copied it and put my own spin on it, and we started doing projects just like what they did. So we are not experimenting, like Giulia said, it already exists. So don't worry about technologies at this stage, just enjoy your school.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Any other questions?
So I really like what you guys were saying about how in this field you have to think ahead to 2030, 2050. But as for right now, are there any unexpected limitations that you find in your job, or anything that you, I don't know, just are disappointed in or wish could progress?
Money. There's no money. The technology exists. These heat pumps, which are right next to you, they can work in the coldest of climates, so the technology exists. The awareness exists. The scientists have already been speaking about, if you don't reduce, it's going to be catastrophic. Those knowledge exist. The only thing that doesn't exist is money. And the Biden administration is trying hard with the Inflation Reduction Act to get the billions of dollars out there, but it's not coming as fast as I would want to change. Because my projects are ready to go, but I can't fund them. Money is the biggest barrier.
And I think just to add to that, a lot of this financing needs to be made available up front, whereas all of the incentives that you're seeing exist in the form of tax rebates sometimes.
Yeah.
getting financing as well as general availability of capital?
I mean, money is definitely a huge thing that we suffer. But for me, for example, more specifically, I mean, obviously affordable housing, right? Like the budgets are tight. I think now we're living with the electrification, right? Push. We're living this very frustrating era where we know that we need to electrify buildings in order to do all the things we thought that we need to do. But also right now, some buildings, if you electrify them, they might end up today or like tomorrow paying more on their bill monthly, right? We know that in the future with the greening of the grid, etc., they hopefully not, right? But like today, and so especially when we talk about affordable housing, vulnerable populations, we can do that. And so this is a very fine line that we're walking, and my team at HBD is literally every day on this, of like, okay, here, maybe, there, no. Like, we're literally, and so we talk about beneficial electrification, right? Like where it makes sense, also in a way to prioritize buildings. We cannot, because there is no money, we cannot do everything everywhere. So prioritization is an important thing, which is also what drove Local 97, right? Like it's all about putting first the buildings that are the highest emitters. And so it's all about understanding
The impact on the people.
the impact of your project, where to choose, where to focus on. It's not so easy. It's not so obvious, for sure.
Zeeshan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Giulia and Jeet. We have the technology, we have the knowledge, we just don't have money to fund the projects. And that's also something I'm facing in my projects as well. We are ready to provide all the data to the customer that can help lower their energy cost. But all these projects, they cost a ton of money. And we're still trying to figure out where the money should come from and would it be worth it. So we do ROI and return on investment, and companies are, before even investing, they're trying to calculate the return on investment. Is it even worth it to spend millions of dollars on these upgrades? When am I going to see the return? So we have the technology, we have the idea. There's a lot of startup companies which are ready to implement their solutions, but they just don't have enough money.
Yeah, thank you for all of your idea insights. It's very helpful. So I found myself kind of in a similar position as you guys. Just went through a couple of jobs, or maybe more than that. So I'm curious about like along your career pathway when you're looking for next opportunity, or maybe when you're looking for opportunities for your next 5 years, next 10 years. What is the main driving force for you guys to help to pull you to the next position? Like how do you, I guess maybe in this industry, like what is your end game that you're imagining right now?
I can answer. For me, well, no, the opposite. I feel like we talked, right, what pushed us in general in the sustainability field, and we talked a lot about impact, right? And I think that for me was a driver. Even within the sustainability work, there is a point where you're like, okay, but I can do something more. So for me, especially in my most recent change, I started at HPD maybe 7 months ago in October, so recently. Again, coming from a job that was already deep in sustainability, we were doing like good things for buildings, but for me, for example, the impact, the fact that I was going to go even more big picture, right? Like going on touching the policy side of things in a government job, etc. For me was the push, right? Like which is the biggest impact I can have with the skills that I have, and so that was for me the drive.
I exactly the same answer. Like as you do your role, you will realize that, okay, you have done what you have done and it's time for you to move on to do bigger and better things, because once you're in that role, you will see, okay, if I can do this on a city level or a university level, maybe I can do this on a city level or a state level or a national level. My main driver to leave Colombia was, Colombia has a plan now for the next 25 years. I've done what I could, but I wanted to break this barrier of money because we have such great ideas that we want to implement. So my new role is solely focused on how I can find that money for institutions like a real estate company or Colombia that can actually use that money and get the job done. Because sustainability on paper is all good and sexy, but it's not impactful if you're not actually completing that project, and that's my motivation to find new and bigger and better roles.
Yeah, I have a question. Because right now we spend more than half of the daily time in our own home, but not in the commercial building. When we do like housing renovation, and we do better insulation, and how we find those information for the ventilation and keep the energy inside the house where we live, and better quality, because if the ventilation is not that good, the humidity is here, or when you vent it out and you lose energy, where the people that can find those information for the building department that are required.
From your utility provider. That's your #1 source for finding this information, because nationwide, all the utility providers have a home audit program which is subsidized by the utility providers. So those programs would cost you from like $50 to like $200, but they will send consultants home, they'll wrap your house up and do a blower door test. They're basically trying to pull all the air from the inside the house outside. That way they can point out where are the leakages in the house. And once you plug those leakages, your envelope becomes really tight, and that's how you can actually save energy, and you'll have your reduced costs, your ventilation becomes better, all that. Your local utility provider has all that information.
But
And
also, Urban Green Building Energy Exchange that we named before have plenty of resources on this topic. I don't know if also
Yeah, so I
see it.
think our work, we do organize events that are focused on these topics. Like we did one on building on envelope science just I think a month back. I think one other resources, CUNY and BEX partnered
yeah,
to
really, yeah.
have opened up a helpline, I think, which you can just call in and get advice that's specific to your building in your individual city. So also highly recommend checking that out. I think that's also another idea for us to maybe like put together a bunch of resources. Yeah. Do we have any other questions?
For someone who's trying to learn more about building science as a whole, do you recommend like any books or podcasts or news sources or anything in particular?
Well, the one that we just said, I will also plug the Student Winter Associates blog, and they also have, I think, on demand, there is a blog, there is a podcast called Buildings and Beyond, and I'm saying this specifically to this question about building science because it's really a bunch of building sciences, so it's very specific to how buildings works. And also there is a platform that I think is for payment. I don't really know at this point because I used to have the account anyways, but there are plenty of webinars and it's a very good resource. In terms of podcast, I will also include, it's not maybe specific on building science, but most generically on different topics, BALS. It's a very interesting podcast. Well,
More clean energy.
Yeah, more clean energy, but there are like
energy efficiency as well.
Yeah. I think there are many topics. I don't think you need to know too much, right? Like just find some old school books or whatever to learn about building science, how the buildings are made, but it really depends on the specific aspect you want to focus on. Passive house, webinars and stuff. I mean, you don't have to, right, like focus on passive house, but passive house, it's a very good way to build a building. So some concepts might help you understand something about building science.
Yeah, we have heard their experiences on the jobs, Columbia, the HPD, and the company. Yeah. So, do you think there is a possibility that we can start our own company as an entrepreneur in this field? Do you think that is possible?
You guys thought about starting your own companies?
So I mean, everything is possible. Let's start from there. I mean, be sure if you really want. I think if we're talking about this industry, you need so much, how do you say, collective knowledge,
Lots of
right?
context.
Like, or context, or like stuff that has been accumulated already, that I wouldn't, I had this conversation a lot, especially with my husband that started his own companies. And he was like, you should too. And I'm like, no, I don't want to, because like isolating yourself might not be the most efficient way to progress, I think, in this environment. There are already so many people trying to actually implement and doing the things and etc. I'm advocating for actually joining forces rather than trying to split. I mean, it's different if obviously you have a very specific technology idea and you start your own startup producing that one device, doing something, but a consultancy company, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend. That's my idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a little different. I have my own consulting business on the side because there's so much work outside and there is not enough talent. You will find someone asking, hey, can you help me out for like 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours? And you can find smaller jobs where you can still do your full-time jobs and run an LLC on the side. Because those are pocket money at the end of the day that you can get. And that's really helpful. You build on those experiences. If your company is there for 5-10 years and eventually you reach a point where you want to go full-time, you have built a network, you have built a relationship, you have also built time on your company which you can advertise and get more jobs out of it. So it's entirely possible. I mean, this country is like, it gives you ample of opportunities. You just have to be ready to pick one up and go with it.
And then just on the theme of this whole session, there could be things that are happening in your home country that are actually more innovative that you can bring here. And this is the place where you will find the right capital. I know that capital is limited, but you can find, like, I think there's a lot of support for innovation. One of the startups that I worked with a couple of months back is trying to bring solar to rental homes. That is a problem that has not been solved in this space. So there's always problems out there, like Jeet said, and if you can find like a technical solution that is very heavily grounded in the right basics, then why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
The only thing I want to add is US is probably the only country where starting a business is pretty easy. There's always need, and unlike other countries, you don't have to bribe anyone. You can open your own LLC, and if you have the right market, if you can find the right customers, I would say go for it. I think business is the only way. If you want to stay here in the US, business is the way. Or something like Jesus doing, start an LLC on the side. Maybe one day it'll grow as big, you don't have to work full time.
But always look for free resources. Even you asked a question about building science, right? We're sitting in Fujitsu Air Stage, right? If you go to Fujitsu website, they have plenty of YouTube videos on building science for free. Never pay money for things that you can get for free.
Also a thing we learned in India.
Yeah. And it's being thrifty.
I really want to thank all of you guys for making this time, and can you give them a round of applause? Shout out to all of our volunteers. Can you guys raise your hands or wave? They make all of these events possible. If you want to volunteer, or if you have any questions about Genome NYC, please come find us after. Thank you so much for making the time, and please enjoy the space and the beautiful sunset. And we hope you'll hang out for a bit and talk to each other. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.